Phones and finance drove the local bourse higher despite the ongoing ructions in Greece. I spoke to Charlie Aitken from Bell Potter Securities a little earlier. Charlie Aitken, the trading week started with a whimper, not a bang, it seems.
Well, a bit of a whimper. Yeah, volumes were not great, Ticky, at 4.2 billion, but the market did eke out a 12-point gain. But really a tale of two markets. Resource stocks sideways to down, industrial stocks with high dividends doing very well, industrial stocks that earn offshore doing well because the currency's come down. So really, while the index was only up 12 points, there were plenty of stocks up 1% and 2% today, but also plenty of resource stocks down 2% and 3%. So the index didn't tell the true story.
No, indeed. And one of those stocks went the other way. BHP Billiton's head of petroleum, I see, was speaking at that APIA conference in Adelaide. He wasn't ruling out a write-down of the company's US shale assets. So how come BHP Billiton outperformed its peers?
That's a very good question, Ticky. I think really when you see a rotation away from risk in resources, BHP does pretty well. It's the biggest, most diversified, probably safest resource stock. But I think specific to the shale gas business, it's very widely expected that BHP will write down that business by some degree at the annual result. But what's happened since that speculation started is the natural gas price in America has just rallied 30%. So people think the scale of that downgrade may be less than was previously expected. So I don't think anything Mike Yeager said today was a surprise to the market, and BHP actually outperformed everything.
Dulux Group suffered a 2% dip in its half-year profits, and the MD was saying that actually a takeover bid for Gloucester Corporation was not a must-do. So how did the market react to that?
Well, I think it took it in its stride, but you've got to remember that no acquiring CEO will ever talk up the prospect of the acquisition target.
No.
I mean, I think Dulux and Gloucester make sense. I think Dulux wants to see if there's any other bidder. The market is pricing Gloucester shares like there could be another bidder from, say, private equity. But I think, Dulux did the standard response today of not trying to talk up the target, and I think both shares were reasonably unmoved.
Coalworks knocked back a takeover bid from Whitehaven Coal. Was that why the Whitehaven Coal share price was suffering a bit?
Fractionally, I don't think it helps sentiment towards Whitehaven, but what really is going on in the thermal coal stocks is the thermal coal price has been falling. Again, to do with the amount of gas in the world and alternatives to thermal coal for power generation. But more interestingly, there was actually a piece of news out from Newcastle today where there's only 2 coal ships waiting off Newcastle. That's the lowest I can ever remember, and probably a sign of weakening demand in thermal coal, and all the thermal coal stocks were down today, including Whitehaven again.
Finally, still on M&A and on coal, I see Gloucester Coal has got some good news from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
Yeah, a little bit of good news on the regulatory side there, with the Hong Kong Stock Exchange allowing Yancoal to sell down its Australian subsidiary to about 78%, which should facilitate the merger with Gloucester. But I suspect that was expected, Ticky, and again, the share price of Gloucester under pressure for being a thermal coal stock today, losing ground despite that good fundamental news.
Charlie Aitken, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ticky.